Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. Today I want to talk about the Joker sequel, Joker Folie à Deux. It's something that regrettably I haven't spoke about enough. But we're getting very, very close to the release of the trailer. You're not supposed to know that, but someone's tipped me a wink. Now, Access Media yesterday decided to start saying that the composer Hilda said that this film is totally a musical. Now, I don't like people being misinformed and making a judgment on whether they're going to go and see this film on it being a musical. Calling a film a musical can lead to certain opinions, and I don't want anyone put off by this film because a friend of mine was a runner on this film, so I know a hell of a lot about this film. So I'm going to explain to you whether this film is a musical or not. For example, The Wizard of Oz is officially a musical, but we have a sing-along, but we have lots of dialogue, we have some action, there's lots of different things going on in The Wizard of Oz. So just to say that film's a musical isn't fair. So what's about Joker Folie à Deux? By the way, I actually know what the film's about. You do not want to miss this film. The first thing that Todd Phillips has done is made a very different movie, a different sequel to the original. And this is what people are asking for. They don't want cinematic universes. They want director-driven movies. And this is exactly what Joker Folie à Deux will be, and exactly what the Batman 2 is going to be. These are the comic book movies we want to see. We don't want cinematic universes. Anyway, is Joker Folie à Deux a musical? Yes and no. There's plenty of songs, there's plenty of dancing, but there's also a lot of storytelling, not only within those songs, but within the film. There's lots of dialogue, there's lots of action, there's lots of things going on within this movie. They are not just singing and dancing, and I think it's very important that people understand that. Very important. So I would call this film a love story. This is the love story between Harley Quinn and the Joker we've always wanted to see. We saw a hint of it in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, even though that's not really David Ayer's Suicide Squad, the theatrical version of the Suicide Squad movie. That's as close as we've got to it in live action. It's a very, very interesting love story. But I think that Todd has really captured the essence of this relationship. And I think it's very, very important to understand that because it's such an important story within the DC universe. And I truly believe, from what I've been told, that Todd has captured this beautifully. But whatever you're expecting, it's not going to be. It's going to be magnificent. It's going to please DC fans. And I believe that this film will quadruple the box office of Flash, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and Blue Beetle rolled into one. Whether it makes the $1 billion that the first film made, this film is under certain pressure to perform at the Oscars and with the critics and in the box office as the first film. Just like The Empire Strikes Back was under the same pressure because everything was dandy with the first Joker movie. But this is a very, very different film to the first film. But what it does, it builds on what was introduced in the first film and will be introduced to Harley Quinn. This is what Todd Phillips always wanted to do with a sequel. Tell the next villain story. And I think what's very, very different from what I've been told to Lady Gaga's version of Harley Quinn to what Margot Robbie has done, they really embrace that this is a flawed character. They don't try and make her a feminist. They don't try and make her an anti-hero like James Gunn tried to do in his Suicide Squad movie. There's no feminism in this film because Todd Phillips isn't that type of person. That isn't where his political bias is. Because people like Todd Phillips leave their political bias outside. So I think it's very, very important to say that. You know, Harley Quinn will do some good things in this movie, but you'll also see her being a criminal. You'll see her killing people. Because Harley Quinn, let's be clear about this, she may have a cutesy voice, right? We may all love her, but Harley Quinn isn't a good person. She isn't an anti-hero. She isn't a feminist. She's a psychopath. She's a killer. And this is why her and Joker get on so well. That's where the love story comes from. And to try and avoid that, and to try and, colour her with pink and bubbles and try and say this is a really lovely woman and it's not really her fault and the Joker seduced her. Now, this is a rumour I've heard, and my friend didn't mention this to me, but apparently they're going to twist this around and say that Harley Quinn is actually the one manipulating the Joker this time, rather than the other way round. So that's a very interesting creative conceit, if true, by Todd Phillips. It doesn't surprise me that Todd Phillips would twist that narrative around. So he's not going to adhere with everything from the comics. What I liked about the first Joker movie, it really does stand by who the Joker is and who he's always been in the comics and animation and in live action at his best, but it also tells an original origin story, calling him Arthur Fleck. Giving him a name is very interesting. But what's great about this film is it's in the Elseworld. So this is just kind of an alternate universe version of Harley and the Joker. Now, we could be introduced to other DC characters in this film as well. But it's not Superman Legacy. Superman's my character, my man, my favourite character in fiction. But it's not Superman Legacy that's getting me in a hot sweat right now. It's Joker Folie à Deux. This is my most anticipated movie. And for me, just having this out next year as the only DC film is absolutely fine with me. Let me say this and put bumper stickers on it. It's perfectly fine just to have one DC movie a year. So in 2024, we've got one DC movie. In 2025, we've got one DC movie. Now, I don't know when Waller comes out and Creature Commandos come out, so there'll be stuff on HBO Max. But it's perfectly fine to have one auteur vision of a DC film out a year without any cinematic universes or anything. In fact, if that's all we were getting, director-driven DC movies, one director-driven DC movie a year, I'd be perfectly fine with that. That's all we need. We don't need 4 to 6 DC movies a year. That's what's damaged the superhero CBM genre. So I'm very, very excited for this movie. And as you can see in here, I know a lot about it. And that's why I'm very, very excited about it. This film has different levels, everyone. You've got the singing, you've got the dancing. I've been told the choreography and the songs were brilliant. You're going to want the soundtrack from this movie. Now, Hilda did an excellent job with the music from the first movie. Brilliant. Some of the best music I've ever heard. But from what I've heard from people, she's outdone herself this time. And we should get a teaser trailer very, very soon. So if I remember rightly, the movie's about a year away, I think. Is it released next October? I think it is. And so what they wanted to do was release a teaser trailer on the year just before the release of Joker Folie à Deux. I expect the trailer next month. Now, don't hold me to that, but that's what I'm being told. Now, don't forget, this is WB Discovery. Things change very, very quickly. So let's be clear. James Gunn is not Todd Phillips' boss. Todd Phillips has had a free rein. He has David Zaslav's trust. David Zaslav went to Todd Phillips to run DC Studios. He was the first person he went to. He wanted him and Matt Reeves to run DC Studios. They said no. He offered it around, and in the end, he went to James Gunn. I want to be absolutely clear how much trust Zaslav, has of this man. And this man's been able to make his movie. No one tells Todd Phillips how to make a movie. Neither should they. And James Gunn has no right to be interfering with this movie, and he can't. He was asked if DC Studios is also the Batman and the Joker universe. He said yes. But the truth is, DC Studios pretty much is just DC Universe, that cinematic universe that they're working on. And they have no authority over Matt Reeves. They have no authority over Todd Phillips. I don't know what the relationship's like between James Gunn and Matt Reeves, if any, but he doesn't have the parameters to get involved with those films. And I hope that gives fans a sense of relief. So, yeah, I think it's very important to understand what Joker Follow Your Do is. So, yes, there's music, there's singing, there's dancing. Maybe you think, well, that is a musical. And to some sorts of the description, it is. But this movie is a lot more than a musical. There's so much more going in on this movie. Now, some people have complained and lamented the fact it's going to be a musical. I don't. I celebrate that. I like the fact that this movie is going to be truly different, and not for the sake of being different. People celebrate James Gunn's mixtapes in his Guardians movies and in his Suicide Squad movie. What's so bad about Todd Phillips doing a Joker sequel that's a musical? You haven't even seen the movie yet. You don't know what it's going to be about, but I can tell you it's going to be a remarkably unique film. And I would get excited if I were you. And as soon as you can pre-order tickets, you do not want to miss this one. Next year, this will be one of the biggest events in the cinematic calendar. And I embrace it. I celebrate it because at last we have a DC movie that celebrates the director, an auteur director that's got a director-driven DC movie. This should be the future of comic book movies and not cinematic universe. Oppenheimer is going to make around $1 billion. Nobody predicted that, but it still can't beat the first Joker, which is the most successful R-rated movie of all time. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody thought Joker could beat Deadpool, but it did. And let's be clear, Joker is leaps and bounds a much better film than the first Deadpool. Now, the first Deadpool is a very different movie. It's a comedy, it's very bloody and all of that. To be honest with you, I don't even know why Joker was ever R-rated. It's interesting, isn't it? Maybe with the certifications the way they are, he wouldn't have been able to have Joker shoot Robert De Niro's Murray live on television if it wasn't R-rated. But it isn't the most gory movie, it isn't the most action-packed, violent movie. So it was always beyond me how that movie was even R-rated. But it is. Now, I'm not sure if this film will be R-rated as well. That's an interesting thing. Will it be rated R? I don't know if that's been confirmed or it hasn't been confirmed yet. So it could be rated R, it may not. If it happens to not be rated R, this movie could make even more than the last movie. That'll be a very, very interesting thing. So it continues the themes from the first movie, which means Bruce Wayne, who was introduced as a child in this movie, you should expect to see him at some sort of level. I'm not saying he's going to be in it a lot, but expect him to feature in this movie. Obviously, Arkham Asylum is also a big deal. And what I'm hearing as well, that Harley Quinn isn't an inmate at Arkham Asylum. No, let me say that again, because I got that wrong. That she's actually not Dr. Harley Quinzel in this movie, but actually an inmate of Arkham. Got that right. Now I've got the information. Now I'm misinforming you, yeah. So not Dr. Harleen Quinzel, but an actual inmate of Arkham Asylum. So that's a little bit different, breaks the canon, but again, I don't mind the breaking of canon. I was talking about this on Twitter today. Smallville broke canon so many times, but when you do what they did, which was make things even better than they ever were, you have every right to break canon. Breaking canon isn't always a bad thing. The first Joker did it, this Joker's going to do it. What Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips did in that first movie was remarkable. I'm really looking forward to this movie. I can't wait for us to react to the trailer together, because I think you're going to see the tease of a very special film. I've always been consistent with my opinion on James Gunn as a filmmaker. I've always said he's a really good filmmaker. I don't think he's one of the greatest of all time, but I like his films. I love his films. I was rewatching Guardians Volume 3 this morning. It's so good. He always blends in the VFX beautifully. He, directs his actors brilliantly, and his films, especially his Guardians movies, work for what they are. And actors always love working with him. So he's a really, really good director. But for the life of me, I genuinely don't understand how he became co-CEO of DC Studios. Really, it's a bit of a glamorizing title, and it's not really accurate to what his job is at DC Studios. He's the showrunner. He's constructing the story. He's in charge of what happens in these movies, TV shows, and these games. This is his vision, and this is what David Zaslav wants him to do. But he's not a good CEO. He's already proven it. I mean, his decision to replace Cavill, in a way, I've always said, I get it because he wants his own Superman, but then he's not willing to do a fresh reboot. So it's inconsistent already. So yeah, I get why you want your own Superman, so why not do a clean reboot? Doesn't make sense, does it? The reason I feel that Cavill, reversal, the decision to reverse his return, is a problem because you got fans excited. Not James Gunn, but the people who decided he was coming back. Then you bring in a guy who doesn't want Cavill and wants his own man. So I understand the decision, kind of 50% of it, but you got people excited and now they're upset with James. And it's not really James's fault. James didn't decide to bring him back. But the decision is still very, very problematic. And besides, we've got two Batmen. We're going to have one in the DC universe, and we've got one in the Elseworlds with Matt Reeves, the Batman universe. So why can't Henry be an Elseworlds Superman? Why can't Zack make that final Man of Steel sequel? Just to close things off. If you're going to have two Batmen, why can't you have two Supermen? But there is a theory that people are going with. A lot of people have heard and are being told, and there's rumours out there saying that Matt Reeves won't get a third The Batman movie, and that's one of the reasons he's getting the Arkham show on Max, and he's already got someone involved with the Penguin show as well. They're doing that show as well, and apparently that's all he's going to get. Because the truth is, after all that, Matt Reeves won't do anything else. Now, this is interesting because I'm just telling you a rumour. But then we've heard something else recently, that actually Matt Reeves is developing the Batman cinematic universe. So can you have two versions of Batman? I think in terms of the way Matt's done Batman and Chris Nolan's done Batman and Burton's done Batman, I think it's going to work in the sense of you've got one Batman who's going to be very fantastical, right, and lighter and brighter. And you're going to have Matt Reeves' Batman cinematic universe, which is totally different. So I think there's space for both of them. So, David Corenswet's Superman's going to be in a very different cinematic universe, right? With lots of different characters. And Henry Cavill's Superman is already part of a Justice League, of course. But I don't think it would hurt anyone. If you can have two Batmen in this, in DC Elseworlds, right? And in DC Universe, why can't you have two Supermen? It doesn't really make sense. So to make the decision just to say, you're gone. But because there's an element at WB Pictures who are still there from before, who hate Zack Snyder, that was never going to happen. But as I say, for the life of me, I don't understand why James Gunn is a CEO. I think James Gunn's strengths are in making films. And nobody can say he's a bad director. I don't think he's the director and writer that he thinks he is, but he's very good. Let's be clear about that, right? I don't agree with some of the decisions, the way he conducts himself sometimes, but I like his films. And we need to be clear. I'd be more than happy for him to continue with Creature Commandos, the Suicide Squad universe, Peacemaker 2, and the Authority movie. He could do that in his own universe, right? He never wanted to make a Superman film. Superman is not his character. In fact, I'd go as far to say that I don't even think that James Gunn even likes Superman as a character. And that worries me to my core. The only reason he's writing and directing a Superman movie because he's been given this big role as co-CEO of DC Studios, and he has to make that movie. It's not a movie James chose to make. These are the facts. He won't thank me for, revealing this, but I've said this before. James Gunn didn't want to direct Superman Legacy. He barely wanted to write Superman Legacy. The only reason there is a Superman Legacy because Zaslav wanted a cinematic universe and he wanted Superman and Batman front and center. But believe you me, Superman and Batman will not be front and center. They'll be there. They'll be there. But knowing James Gunn, he'll want to develop lesser known heroes. I don't have a problem with that. Giving people movies and TV shows that haven't had that treatment before is more than fair. And James Gunn has shown us that he's better at doing unknown characters or lesser known characters than he is the big boys. He really hasn't tackled such a huge character before like Superman. He's not a Superman fan. He doesn't even really like Superman, and he's being forced to do this because he's co-CEO of DC Studios and it's his job to do this. And that's what really worries me. I'm not worried about James Gunn, the filmmaker, doing The Authority, doing Creature Commandos. The Authority and Creature Commandos is exactly what James is tailor-made to make. It's a group of cast-outs, right? Both those characters. It's perfect for James Gunn. The Suicide Squad movie was perfect for James Gunn. Peacemaker is perfect for James Gunn. There's no difference between the Peacemaker show and Creature Commandos and the Authority. They're all the same shit. Because yes, James pretty much is a one-trick pony. But he can do that one trick really, really well. I believe there's a place for James Gunn. What they were getting him to do under Hamada was perfect for him to have his little Suicide Squad universe, Peacemaker, and Waller and all of this, and the Authority and Creature Commandos, perfect for James. I think there's a place for James in the DC universe. But him calling the shots, look at the decisions he's made. It hasn't worked. This guy should be writing and directing his own little corner in the DC universe. Matt Reeves should be making his own little corner in the DC universe, as he is. Todd Phillips should be doing his own little corner in the DC universe, as he is. That's what we need. Not a cinematic universe. Gunn over there, Reeves over there, and Phillips over there. That's what we actually need. That's what would be perfect. So I'm not saying that I don't want James Gunn making DC movies, but not a Superman movie, because he doesn't want to make this Superman movie. That's the point. He wants to make Creature Commandos because he was always doing that under Hamada. He was always doing an Authority movie under Hamada. These are facts. I know this. You don't know this, but I do. So you're being told this is all part of some new plan. No. James Gunn was always doing Creature Commandos and the Authority, Peacemaker 2, and he was always producing and co-writing Waller as well. That was always on the books. So this really has been recycled as this brand new DC Universe plan. All he's done is added it to what he's already doing. Then he's been put on Superman. He's writing and directing Superman Legacy. But he doesn't want to do that. And he's admitted it. In some sort of way, he's admitted this. And I'll repeat to you what he said when he announced he was directing Legacy. He said, I had to think about it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend, the next 2 years of my life on something I wasn't that motivated to do. Not the exact words, right? I'm paraphrasing. But pretty much he admits that his motivations aren't Superman. So he's making a film he doesn't really want to make, that he's not really invested in. And with auteurs like James Gunn, with all auteurs, they have to be motivated in what they make. James Gunn, Matt Reeves, Christopher Nolan, they're in a position in their careers where they can choose what they want to do. But in a way, I feel sorry for James Gunn because he's been offered an opportunity of a lifetime. This is why he was angry about Nolan and Burton not being comic book accurate. He loves comic books, right? I don't agree about the opinions. I don't think he should have been so public about the opinions, but they're his, right? He's passionate about comic book characters, DC and Marvel, and I can see that. He was offered the opportunity of a lifetime to run DC, and he couldn't turn it down. That's what he said. I couldn't turn down the opportunity. But I wonder if you ask him here and now, without a microphone in his face, if it was just me and him, what would he say? I believe he'd rather be making a Suicide Squad sequel, a Peacemaker sequel, Creature Commandos, an Authority movie, right? And be involved in the production of Waller. That's perfect, because guess what, everyone? Whatever you think of James Gunn, especially you Snyder fans out there, he made 3 brilliant Guardians movies. Whatever you think of him, don't let your bias get in the way. I never do that, right? I have conflicting opinions about James Gunn, but I'm always very balanced, and that's very important in this game. He made 3 brilliant Guardians movie, 1 brilliant Suicide Squad movie, and I really love Peacemaker as well. They were good. Let's not get twisted here. What he did in Guardians 3 was fucking sensational, especially with the villain. Think about this for a minute, right? He took a villain who's white in the comics, right? And then cast a black man to play one of the most sadistic villains in the Marvel Universe. Sadistic he is in that film, what he does to Rocket. Sadistic, right? And very complex. Now, normally, Hollywood would cancel, the LA press, Access Media, and Hollywood will cancel someone for doing something because they don't really like black people and minorities playing bad people and villains. He got away with it. It was interesting because he wanted the actor from Peacemaker because he really liked him and got on with him to play that role. And oh boy, what a performance it was. So don't get it twisted. James Gunn is good at what he does. But for the life of me, I don't understand why he's been given this big title and role of being the orchestrator of DC. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm not Nostradamus. Gunn may actually, after the mistakes and missteps of what he's done, interfering with the DC Extended Universe movies, making dumb decisions like the George Clooney decision, he may actually create something very special. We don't know. But so far, it hasn't been great. And when I see these things, I have to criticize them. It doesn't mean that I'm saying that Superman Legacy is going to flop, right? I think he's got a hard act to follow with Man of Steel, because even though people feel he underachieved with 650, it was a very unique, contemporary Superman movie. And people accuse Zack Snyder of hating Superman and not being a Superman fan and being more of a Batman fan than Superman. But he pulled off a unique movie. I think Zack loves Superman, and you can tell by what he did with Superman in his Snyderverse. I don't believe he's a hater. But he was asked to come in by Nolan. He wasn't sure what way Nolan wanted to go, but when he saw the script by Nolan and Goya, he loved it, and he knew they could work together. It was the perfect storm. But here's the problem. As I've already said, James Gunn doesn't want to write and direct a Superman movie. And this, my friends, is the fundamental problem.